Hello lads and ladies, and welcome back for another video on the channel. Today we are going through Sky Bet League One from the bottom to the top. This was going to be a video where we just looked at those sides hunting for a playoff spot, but we are going to include the bottom race as well for those 4 relegation spots as well. Just briefly as well, the mid-table teams, we'll just talk about 30 seconds for. We won't mention names, Lincoln. Other than that, we will be very brief on those mid-table teams at Lincoln. So if you are new to the channel, please remember to like and subscribe. Jake, how many likes should we set?
I know, 350?
350? No, we're not hitting that. We're not hitting that.
250?
250. If we can get 250 likes, we'll get a new co-host next season. The relegation battle was hotting up until maybe the last month or so. Shrewsbury, Cambridge currently sit in those places. Shrewsbury bottom of the table on 28 points. Cambridge on 30. Crawley with a victory yesterday on 33. And Burton on 36 with a game in hand on Bristol Rovers on 42. Shrewsbury and Cambridge, absolutely no way back for them, surely. Jake?
Yeah, I agree. The manager bounces that they've wanted haven't quite gone to plan, have they? We've got behind Gareth Ainsworth, haven't we, Ben? Quite, you know, not literally, but yeah, we nearly got there.
It can't go in. Well,
maybe this may be a members only video. Hi, Sue, if you're watching. Yeah, no, it was. Of course, she's watching. Yeah, not quite worked out, and I actually quite thought that Neil Harris was going to do a good job at Cambridge. He was quite good when he went in last year, and obviously left for Millwall and had Millwall in the top half of the Championship. So I'm surprised that them two teams have been cut adrift. Maybe they've just not got the quality. You look at I think what you can point back to those two clubs are poor recruitment in the summer, really poor recruitment. And when you've seen this yourself, and when you just have an awful summer in terms of recruitment, you're all of a sudden you're trying to make up for it in January, and they're not able to do it because of the precarious situation that they're in. And unfortunately for those two, it looks like League Two football. What I would say is that the positives for both of those fan bases is they've got good managers. If they can keep them around next season, you'd imagine that those two clubs might well be challenging towards the top end of the league if they can back the managers that they've got in situ. But that's another story, because we see teams go down from League One and go further down, or sometimes maybe even finish mid-table. So we'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely agree. I think there's no way back for those clubs, but there are foundations there to be built, and I think that a massive reset is needed at both of those football clubs. New ownership potentially at Shrewsbury as well. I can't see any of those clubs, if I'm honest with you, fighting at the right end of League Two unless anything dramatic happens. I think that you look at the way they finished last season. Shrewsbury, Cambridge and Burton all finished the 3 places just above the drop zone. However, Crawley were a team that came up from League Two, and they won the first 2 games. After that, they were poor. They'd only taken 24 points from their next 34 games, which says everything you really need. Oh, hang on. Crawley had only taken 24 points from their last 35 games, which isn't great. They did win under Scott Lindsay against Bristol Rovers. Bristol Rovers at home are brilliant. Away from home, they are a bit of a speed camera, and that's a fact. They're awful. They are literally, let's roll over and you can tickle our bellies. They're perfect opposition for you.
Like a Galaxy Caramel, Ben.
Like a guy soft underbelly as well. Maybe a bit like a flake, really. If you know, you know. Crawley, I think Scotland is coming back. He's not worked elsewhere for him. It just works there for him. He'll get backed by the supporters. Will he get backed in the transfer window? Who knows? But I think the likes of Jeremy Kelly next year, the best player in the world, I think that he went up to him and said, you can see smiles on the faces again. There'll be a bit more belief, and he might be able to attract some of the players that moves maybe didn't work out for him as much. Maybe in Horsey can come back to the football club if they can have a go at it as well. And I genuinely hope that they leave the football inside to Scott Lindsay. Burton Albion have really improved under Gary Bowie. Have been a mid-table side. But let's be honest, for the last nigh on 15 matches or so till January, 36 points. He won 3 out of the last 6, only lost twice. Having John Daddy Barton in the team is crucial, because he had him in, they were winning games. They took him out for 3 or 4 games. He didn't win one of them. Massive win last time out away at Shrewsbury. They could have won 4 or 5 on that occasion. 6 behind Bristol Rovers with a game in hand. They have got tough games left, don't get me wrong. They've got the likes of Stockport County, Wrexham, Huddersfield, Leyton Orient, and Birmingham City. But they've also got the likes of Wigan, Cambridge, Exeter in that run as well. They do end the season away at the Valley, which could be a tough end. But I genuinely believe something can safely potentially happen at the Pirelli Stadium. Go on the David.
Well, maybe something is brewing after all. Maybe that banner that they put up on the opening day where they lost 3-2 to us might actually finally be coming to fruition. But ultimately, Ben, and while you make the argument for Burt maybe staying up under Gary Bowyer, unfortunately, football is a 46-game season, not a 18, 19, 20 game season. And Burton were not good enough for the first 23 games. I think they won 2 games of the first 23. They were in no position. Obviously, they took 2 months to appoint the manager. We've said this before on League One Live, and we said it personally. If they'd appointed Gary Bowyer just 4 weeks before they ended up doing so, maybe they'd be sort of where Northampton and Bristol Rovers are now. So they've done well. They've done well to claw themselves back because they were on the brink of maybe being cut adrift with Shrewsbury and Cambridge. But look, they've got some good players in the building. Obviously, John Daddy's come in. Burrell's started to hit a bit of form as well. Obviously, McKiernan's gone in there and done really well alongside Charlie Webster. Put your tongue away, Ben. They've had a good last sort of 6 to 8 weeks. They need to back it up, and they need to win some games that perhaps on paper they're not expected to win, which will be the challenge for them. And if they do that, then fair enough, because they've got a really tough run in. But they just need to. I think they could easily need another 14 points, Ben, quite comfortably.
I think they can probably get away with 13, possibly 13. Say 14. It is going to look increasingly likely. You look at the standard of the bottom four, it's been poor this year, but I think the standard of teams above them, that Bristol Rovers and Northampton have been better in recent weeks. Yes, I know they lost recently to Blackpool, and Bristol Rovers away from has been horrific, but Bristol Rovers have really turned the corner in recent weeks as well. They're averaging around about 1.1, 1.2 points a game, some of these clubs, and that would normally, 42 points after 38 games, would have you 17th, 16th, and as I know, they're only a couple of points off that. Bristol Rovers and Northampton currently occupy on 42 points, just above the relegation. Though Nolan's done a decent job since coming in. I think it's a case of drawing a lot of games recently as well. Since he's come into the football club, they have managed to beat the likes of Leyton Orient, Mansfield, Bristol Rovers. And I think where the sides like themselves, Exeter as well, have been good at this, is beating the sides below them. And I think they did that well last year as well. The draws, to be fair, you could actually occupy as good points. A 1-1 away at Exeter, you don't let them get above you really by an extra 2 points. You don't let Stockport County take 3 points off you at home. They drew 1-1 against Birmingham City. So you can say about them, they are getting good points that before the game you go, you take a point today, you would. And it's often that 1 point, you're just keeping them above that safety line as well. How many teams do you think are in that relegation battle, Jake? Because if you said 14 points, I think because of the lack of quality from Shrewsbury, like Shrewsbury can literally get a maximum points of, I think it's 55, not going to get anywhere near that. Same with Cambridge and same probably with Crawley, unless something ridiculous happens. I think that because it's only really Crawley and Burton within a small chance of staying in the division, that a lot of the clubs on 45 and 44 are away from it a little bit because maybe they need another win. But how many teams would you say are really in danger?
Well, certainly Bristol Rovers and Northampton, you'd have to say. Obviously, you're also looking a bit precariously at Wigan, who are only a point in front of them. Obviously, they've got 2 games less played, but under Ryan Lowe, you'd imagine they might end up picking themselves up a little bit. Teams that I'm worried for, Bristol Rovers, Northampton. I'm worried about Mansfield, Ben. I am worried about them. Their recent form, bar a win over Barnsley last weekend. They've been in horrific form. Have just dropped like an absolute stone. So Peterborough look like they've got themselves well and truly out of it, and you'd imagine with the return of Kwame Poku, they'd be okay. Of what I saw of Exeter yesterday, they're more than capable of staying in the league. They're more than capable of shutting teams down, making sure they're hard to beat. I thought they're actually very good out of possession yesterday, Exeter. So I think they'll get the win they need. So I'm really looking at Mansfield down as potential for that last spot. Although you're looking at Wigan and probably Mansfield, I'd say they probably need another 5 or 6 points to make sure of it. But Bristol Rovers and Northampton, the way they're going, if you're asking me which one is in more danger, it's got to be Bristol Rovers, isn't it? Away from home, they're just soft. Like you say, they're really poor. Lost yesterday away at Crawley. Northampton under Kevin Nolan, and I criticised the appointment. He's actually gone in and stripped them back to basics, and they've done a lot better, actually. So he's done a really good job at this, just steering them away, because we know this second season for Northampton in League One is stereotypically a really poor year for them. So, look, I think it could be those 4 teams directly above that might get themselves dragged in. But obviously, it requires Burton continuing the pace in which they have been over the last 6 to 8 weeks, like we said. And, given the fact we're talking about a team that have lost 17 out of 37, is that going to happen? Are they going to continue at the rate that they've been going at? It's quite unlikely. So I think they're going to be safe. But I think them sort of 4 teams that you're looking at next year, maybe bar Wigan, as teams that maybe you're putting in your bottom 4 just as like you did with Shrewsbury, Cambridge and Burton this year, because they've just stayed up the year previous. So, yeah, I think that's where the line draws, but I think it's highly likely that we maybe see, I think it's probably 1 from 2. I think it's either Bristol Rovers or Burton that will take that last spot.
I think Northampton got 21 points from their last 17 games. They had 21 from 21. They weren't disastrous under Brady, but I think the performances have improved and they're just getting more points now on the board as well. I think that you look at all those teams down there as well, the goals scored. Crawley have scored 40 goals, actually, which is the most in that bottom 7, which is very good. Only Mansfield, actually, in the bottom 9 have scored more goals than Crawley. However, they've conceded 71 goals, which is the most in the division. And for me, I think that you look at teams that concede loads of goals normally are in trouble and don't get to where you want to get to. Mansfield, Wigan, Exeter, all kind of away from it. Exeter have done well in previous weeks. They're a funny one, Exeter. They'll start off like a house on fire for 8 or 10 games. Then from match week 10 to I think match week 30, they were the worst team in the division on points gained and stuff like that. And they got a win over Cambridge United. And, beat Shrewsbury, beat Mansfield at home as well. Got a point away at Rotherham. So they are good against sides that you probably need to get points out of if you want to stay in the division. And it almost feels like Gary Caldwell's either a messiah there or they want him out. One of the two. Never any in between there as well. It's a very weird one. Peterborough have done well in recent weeks to turn the tide a little bit. I think just in the last 6, 3 wins and 3 draws. Proper like Peterborough of old, showing the quality that they have got. And now they'll be thinking, well, we're only 4 points behind Stevenage and 5 points with a game in hand against Lincoln City, who are in the top 12. And they're in a cup final as well. Normally when that happens, you're uplifted as well. Rotherham United have had a very poor season. They just want the season to end. Stevenage just a point away from the top half of Lincoln City. Jake, Lincoln City in 12th place. Very mid-table, very much like myself. You just want it to end now. Very, very frustrating. You're like a trampoline. You're up and you're down. You're up and you're down. You'll get a good win, then you'll be set back down to reality. But overall, for the column text, this is a good season for Lincoln. But after last season's playoff charge really towards the end, it's seen as nothing more as disappointment, which shows the growth of the football club in recent years.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think if you look at the season as a whole, it's been pretty good. We have been in and amongst the playoff conversation for probably half the season, but obviously fading away. I just don't think we have the same quality and depth that we had last year. Whereas last year you were able to bring on a Teddy Bishop or a Danny Mandroyu or a Freddie Draper off the bench, whereas this year you haven't potentially got those options. So yeah, I think it's been it's been an okay season. Like you want the season to end, want to focus on 25, 26, maybe use this last sort of 8 games as a mini pre-season for next year. Put the lads in that's going to definitely, that you want to build your team around. It's had its highs, it's had its lows, the lows of losing 3-0 away at Crawley, losing it to Burton at home, which I'm sure David will love, dropping points away at Shrewsbury and Cambridge as well. But it's also had some really good moments, some really, really good games, wins over Stockport, over Reading, over Orient as well. It's been an up and down season, but I'm just hopeful that May comes quickly now and we can rest up and recover and hopefully go again and try and make a charge towards the top 6 in 25-26.
Barnsley are like a good packet of fruit pastels. Lots of red in there recently as well. 15 wins, 8 draws, 15 defeats. And I've labelled them as, we had an argument. You basically said Barnsley Football Club are underachieving. And I agree with that as terms of as a football club, as a name, Barnsley Football Club. But if you gave Barnsley squad to, let's say, Burton Albion or Crawley or Cambridge, you wouldn't put them any higher than where they are now. It's a mid-table squad. I thought the owners didn't back the manager, Darrell Clarke, in the summer. Yes, they brought in Keeler Dunn as a start signing, which has basically got them where they are within a sniff of the playoffs, just up until maybe 5-6 games ago, really. It's a mid-table squad. They haven't got enough options in attacking options as well. Gradually, year on year, they've lost key players. They've got a minus goal difference. They are the only side, within that top kind of 12 to have a minus goal difference, which again I think shows a sign as well. They're not hard to score against anymore. They used to have a really good defence. They've conceded 9 or nearly 1.5 goals a game. Barnsley over the years have been good defensively. If you agree with the sacking of Darrell Clarke for the style, maybe just look at the squad that he's got. Maybe look at the budget he's got at his disposal. Why is he playing a certain way? Because that's what he's got to deal with, and that's probably the best way of getting results. And I feel like the managers there at Barnsley have been hung out to dry there, and Darrell Clarke, Neil Collins, I don't think were probably the right appointments for them anyway, if I'm truthfully honest. And I think this next appointment is massive for them in the summer. Blackpool are probably the last club that you'd put in within a sniff, and I know that they're only a point above Barnsley. They are 7 points off. But again, too many draws. 15 draws. If you can just turn some of those draws into wins next year, I think they'll be a competitive outfit. Leyton Orient, they were a great packet of fruit pastels. They have lots of green and then lots of red, which you want to see in a packet of fruit pastels or Skittles even.
Yeah.
A win last. Oh yeah, the red fruit pastels are the best.
No, green. I'm not questioning you about the green ones.
No. Well, you forget the greens, and the red comes along. 5 reds in a row.
You want the reds and the purples, mate.
Reds and the purples, yeah. Do you know the Skittles? I used to always think, they're all the same flavour. If you shut your eyes and put Skittles in your mouth, you'll forget about it. There you are. You won't even be able to taste the colour. I'll tell you that now. Anyway, Leyton Orient, 17th victory of the season last time out at Bloomfield Road. 56 points, 5 points outside. We've seen what can happen when this Leyton Orient side get on a run. They've got Stevenage, Burton, Wigan and Mansfield and Crawley all to come. They've also got to play Cambridge. Some other tough games in there as well. Can this Leyton Orient side still charge for those top 6 places?
Not for me. I did express my concern, the fact they've done it. They've gone into this great run of form a little bit too early. And I think that's the case. And you saw with the 5 defeats in a row, they sort of plateaued a little bit, haven't they? I mean, they've lost more than Blackpool. They've lost more than Stevenage. They've only lost 1 less than Rotherham and Peterborough and Exeter as well. Lost the same amount of games as Wigan this year of Leyton Orient. So they're very much like an old Peterborough team, aren't they? In terms of they either win or they lose. I don't think they'll finish in the playoffs. I think, like I say, they went a little bit too early. They've got ahead of steam, and whilst they have got some winnable games in there, Ben, sometimes, and you found this out yourself while covering League One with Fleetwood in there, teams that have nothing to play for. Sorry. Teams that have nothing to play for or are desperate to stay up are no longer the guaranteed 3 points that you think they are. Because teams are trying to transition into next season and they're desperately trying for contracts and things like that. So whilst you read off the fixtures there and they do look favourable on paper, do this Leyton Orient squad have the quality of a Bolton? Do they have the quality of a Huddersfield or a Stockport or a Charlton? Not quite. They're in that next sort of gaggle outside, aren't they, with a Reading and Blackpool for me. I don't think they'll get there. I still think it's been an exceptionally successful season for Leyton Orient. I think if you'd have said to them they'd be 9th, in the division if that's where they finished. I think they came, where did they come last year? Same sort of place, didn't they? 9th, 10th, maybe even 11th actually. But yeah, strong season for them. I think it's a little bit too much. That you've got to ask Leyton Orient to pretty much over the next 9 games. I think you're asking them to win what, 6 or 7 of them.
Reading Football Club, again, they are currently 10 games unbeaten at the moment. A lot of draws, though, this year. They've drawn 11 and lost 10. Just turned a couple of those draws into wins, and they cement them place into the playoffs. You look at what they're going for as a football club, been given a wind-up date now as well, which isn't great. And everything that's going on at the football club is disastrous at this moment in time. However, when it gets tough with Reading, they get tougher as a football club. I hope, and we both hope, that everything gets sorted with them as well, and there's no going out of the Football League, because Reading are a great football club, heart of the community as well. To be in a playoff race with 8 games, 9 games to go is remarkable.
Yeah, it's been a good season for Reading, Ben. Obviously, you mentioned there the troubles that they're going through off the pitch. It's disastrous knowing that this could well be Reading's last year in the EFL. Obviously, if a sale doesn't go through, which would be heartbreak. Obviously, I've got mates that are Reading fans, they'd be struggling. But yeah, I think on the pitch, I think the team have performed really well. I think they've played with a lot of passion. They've really fought for the badge on the front rather than the name on the back. I don't think you can accuse any of the players of, potentially not being good enough. They've given absolutely everything, haven't they? And to be in a position where they are still in with a legitimate shout for the playoffs, obviously you'd imagine that all this noise might well work its way into the minds of the footballers at the football club at the minute. It's tough. I think they'd be extremely proud. Like I say, they're a good football club that you'd imagine that if they had a proper budget, if they're able to operate like any other football club at this level, you'd imagine Reading would be well and truly in a playoff spot by this point of the season. So yeah, it's had its ups and downs. Obviously, I think the players have done the local area proud. Like you say, this sale just needs to go through so that we're talking about Reading next year, because it's too often that we're talking about football clubs going to the wire. We've talked about Macclesfield, Bury, Bolton. It nearly happened to Bolton. It'd be horrible to have to talk about it again. So fingers crossed for Reading, but it's been a really good season for them. I think a lot of progression from last year's mid-table finish.
Absolutely. Have a drink. Right. Bolton Wanderers were in great form under Steven Schumacher. However, back-to-back defeats away at Bristol Rovers, and then another defeat last time out at home to Stockport County. 1 point behind Huddersfield with 9 points to go. Huddersfield do have a superior goal difference, so that is, and a better record against them head-to-head. So that is 2 points a game. Let's be honest about that. So they need to realistically win a game. Huddersfield need to draw it to get in, which isn't unlikely at all. They've got some tough games. You've got to go away at Blackpool and then Wigan in the space of a week. Tough games. You've got to then host Bristol Rovers. Games against the Yorkshire clubs, Rotherham and Barnsley. Then you've got Wickham at home. You've got to go to Sincil Bank away, Peterborough away, where they had joy last year as well, and then host Stevenage on the final day. So there is some tough games in there. If in my opinion, I don't think any of the clubs that we've mentioned so far will get into the playoffs. I think Bolton Wanderers will get into the playoffs over Huddersfield Town.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Ben, on that. Once they got going under Schumacher, they had a bit of momentum, weren't they? And the players that are starting to come back into the team. Will Forrester, I think, was one that was close to leaving the club in January. He's had a run in the team. Morley obviously come back from Wickham and has been implemented. Josh Sheehan's probably gone up a level that he was operating at under Ian Evatt. McAtee and Collins as well have stepped up. So, yeah, I think they stand a chance. Obviously, this has been a poor season for Bolton to be involved in the playoff conversation. They'd be wanting to aim for the automatics. But I think in terms of a recovery job, I don't think Steven Schumacher could have asked for anything better. Yes, back-to-back defeats has put a dent in that bid, but we're talking about them winning more points than a Huddersfield team who are very inconsistent, specifically at home. So, look, they've got every chance if they can string a similar run together than they did when Schumacher came into the building. You could be talking about a Bolton Wanderers team that are going into the playoffs with a bit of momentum, and that's when we've seen it with Oxford last year. When clubs go into the playoffs with momentum, they end up doing pretty well. So, yeah, for their sake, and it's probably going to be more likely, knowing Bolton, based on last year, how they were so good and they were disappointed to be in the playoffs this year. It'll be an achievement to finish in there, and I think that change of mindset could well get them over the line and potentially even, would see themselves winners at Wembley.
Huddersfield sound of the team, I think, will drop out. I think the sacking of Duff was it the right call? I don't think the style of football was great and they weren't really winning towards the end of it. I can understand why. However, key players out, like Taylor out, just come back, scored a goal after Duff's gone, and they were losing games towards the end. I think that it was pretty dire towards, I think it was 12 points from the last 11 games, something like that. It's relegation form. Let's be honest about it. They started the season okay, but not playing great. They went on a 16-game unbeaten run, by the way, this season, Huddersfield. And just after he's sacked after that, after like 12 games after that ended, football's a very, very short game. They have got the likes of Leyton Orient to play on the final day of the season. They've got Wickham to come to their home ground. They've got to go away at Edgeley Park. There's some tough games. They've just hammered the season ticket prices up as well. That's not going to do anything for the morale around the football club as well. I think Huddersfield could be in a little bit of bother towards this end of the season. I can't see them getting inside the top six.
No, neither. Just too inconsistent, aren't they? Like we mentioned with Bolton, that's probably the reason I would stick with them, is the fact they have been consistent since Schumacher's come in, and the changing of the manager doesn't particularly help. They're giving it to I think he's their academy manager, wasn't he? The fella that stepped in, obviously not a great deal of experience. And like you say, they've been without players like Joe Taylor. Dion Charles hasn't hit the ground running. They would have anticipated when they paid the money for him. So, yeah, Huddersfield have got a bit to prove for me. I just think there's a lot. Probably when I look at the two squads in the favour, I think it's a straight shootout between Bolton and Huddersfield. Bolton have got the depth in quality, whereas I look at Huddersfield and I go, well, they've got a lot of players that were subpar in the Championship and perhaps have got that mentality of perhaps not being good enough. And Bolton have got a really stacked squad. So, yeah, difficult for Huddersfield. They probably would have anticipated being in the top two conversation pretty much all season. Then the money they spent in January pushed them even closer to that, and they raised expectations by spending so much money on a new strike partnership. But you're expecting two players that have never played together to click all of a sudden. And yes, it clicked for them at previous clubs, but there's no guarantees in football, and you can pay as much as you want for footballers, and it might not click for them. And yeah, I think they're victims of that. It's been a decent season, but yeah, they went on that really long unbeaten run. Then they went and were really inconsistent at home, and we watched them in the flesh, Ben. And to be honest with you, I didn't make much of Huddersfield that day whatsoever. I've seen them a couple of times now, and I've not been too impressed. So, yeah, I think they maybe would have been better off sticking with Michael Duff if they wanted to get into the playoffs. That's for sure.
Stockport County have pretty much the same record as Huddersfield. They've just drawn 4 games more and lost 3 games less, and Huddersfield have a game in hand. If Huddersfield do win that game in hand, granted, they've got to do it. It's always tough winning those games in hand, and it is at home to Wickham, by the way. That one of the more tougher games you could put on paper, but at home, they're only a point behind Stockport County, so it's not all doom and gloom for them. Stockport, who a couple of defeats in their last 5, they hit a great vein of form, which they needed to go on to cement the playoff place. They are still 5 in front of Bolton, but with a game in hand, so they're not exactly in it. They're probably going to have to go on the excess of probably maybe 12 points from their last 8, Stockport County. I really like this side. I really like Dave Challoner. They were unlucky against Wrexham. A penalty kick that was dubious, to say the least. Maybe shouldn't have been given.
Definitely shouldn't have been given.
What?
Definitely shouldn't have been given.
Shouldn't or should?
Shouldn't.
Yeah. James McLean has basically bullied the linesman and the referee into giving it. Would it be given if it was at Edgeley Park? No. I don't think so. I'm not going to say it's because it's Wrexham, because Wrexham had so many decisions against them this year. That's comical. The Blackpool one, I think that So no, that they had one given for them, didn't they, Wrexham?
Yeah.
Wrexham have had a lot of decisions for them this year. They've had a lot against them, don't get me wrong, but it almost feels like something's happening there. And by that I mean the look of the fairy is on the side. They've got a bit of a rub of the green at the moment, have Wrexham. They've just got the winning games of football by the odd goal. And normally when that happens, a promotion or something at the end of it happens. But for Stockport, they always are great against Wrexham at home. Away from home, they struggle. A rare defeat for Charlton last time out, away at Peterborough. They still won 50% of the games. They're on 66 points. Chances for a top 2 spot more than over probably now. That gap going to 8 with just 24 points available. Do you think this Charlton side are shoo-ins for the playoffs?
Yes, definitely. I think they're definitely going to finish in the top 6. They're not one that I can see dropping out. Nathan Jones has got them drilled, hasn't he? And despite a poor performance yesterday away at Peterborough, you'd still back Charlton in most of the games that they've got left to play this season, wouldn't you? Especially at home at the Valley. Nathan Jones has made that place an absolute fortress. He's got his players playing the way that they want to play. The players are in form. You're looking at Gillespie at the back. You're talking about Lloyd Jones, Kane Ramsey, Thierry Small, Luke Berry, Miles Leeburn has been a really big addition since coming back into the team from injury as well. Matty Godden back to scoring goals at this level. We've seen it for years now, haven't we, Ben, with Coventry, Stevenage, Peterborough. The bloke just scores goals for fun. And then when you've got someone when you've got someone in your team that scores goals, you end up on the right side of the fine margins. And, you saw it last season with Pompey. They had Colby Bishop and they won so many games because Colby Bishop just scored goals out of nowhere, and Cassini Yengi as well. So, yeah, I think this Charlton team, whilst I think they're a fair way off the automatics, they're not a team I would consider for finishing in there. They definitely have a really good chance of getting of being in the playoffs and maybe even winning them because, like we say with Wrexham, they're so good at winning the game fine margins, aren't they? They're so good at having in a one-off game. They're outstanding, and they've had some really good performances as well. It's not fair to say that they're only good at winning that sort of game. They have had games where they've absolutely battered the opposition. You talk about Northampton away where they won by 5-0. So this Charlton team can do it all under Nathan Jones. We said it a year ago that he needed a summer and he just needed a bit of time to get it right. And we don't like to blow our own trumpets too hard, Ben, but we might have been right.
What can I say? Wickham Wanderers. Now, for Wickham, they won the 20th game of the season the other day. A great victory away at Rotherham. It had everything that last 25 minutes. They went behind, they equalised, they went in front because they went 3-1 up, but then Rotherham scored a 96th minute penalty to make it a 5-goal thrill. And we all thought, League One live for Wednesday when that went in. But a 20th victory, 64 goals scored, 71 points. They could still mathematically get 98 points, as can Wrexham. They are 3 behind Wrexham with a game in hand. They've got tough games coming up. They've been a bit hit and miss since Dodds came in. They've only lost to Wrexham and Birmingham, the top 2. They've lost, again, both games against Wrexham, which will be a catalyst if they don't go up. Even if you just draw those games of football, you take realistically 4 points off Wrexham to go to 70. You add 2 onto Wickham, so on 73. That's the difference. That is the key differences. And they only lost by 3-2 and 1-0 in tight games over that as well. I do think this Wickham side is still in the race. I just think this Wrexham side have been here over the years as players, as a football club, as a manager, and this season, they've just got a bit more spirit behind them. But that win at Rotherham showed endeavour, fight, enthusiasm, and a will to want to win. Who do you have in this race, Jake? Wrexham on 74 points. They've won a couple more games. They have scored 12 goals less, but conceded 6 goals fewer. 74 points. Massive win for them yesterday. Can they do it, Wrexham? Back to back to back. Jay Rodriguez back to scoring ways. A relief for him, he says, after one of his worst ever penalties.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You're asking me who I think it could be. I think Wrexham are a team with momentum, and we've seen it, Ben, with our own football clubs, how big momentum can be when you're going through the divisions, and Wrexham have just got that at the moment. But then you look at Wickham and you go, well, they've got Richard Kone. So that it doesn't quite even it up for me, but it still gives Wickham a hell of a chance. Like you say with Dodds, I think he's a really good coach. Whether he's the right appointment for being the main man that was, that took this journey on, this baton on for when they were so successful under Bloomfield, we'll have to wait and see. If they don't end up getting promoted, it will sort of showcase that maybe it wasn't the right decision. They've got quality in attacking areas, Wickham, which I really like. Danado comes in, Besler Barla, Luke Leahy, Gideon Kadoa, who obviously scored away at Rotherham as well. They've got options. I just think maybe the limited, not the limited nature. I don't think he's limited. I'm trying to say this without maybe acting a little bit harsh. I just don't think he's got the experience of a Phil Parkinson, who has been promoted out of this division before. And not only that, like we say with momentum, it's such a big thing in football. You overwrite it. But, for example, just to give you 2 examples from last season, look at Doncaster last season. Once they got on a roll, they didn't stop and they just kept winning. They kept winning. And Wrexham have had that over the last 2-3 years. Yeah, they've pumped money into it, but you're allowed to pump money into it and you're allowed to do that to be successful. And let's not say Wickham have also pumped money into this season. I think they spent about nearly £2 million on 2 players from Scandinavia that just haven't played anywhere near as much football as perhaps they would have wanted. So, yeah, for me, Ben, if you're asking me as of today, Wrexham, I just think they've not got any. Well, they've got some easier games to play as well. I think Wrexham, but yeah, now they've sorted that away form out. They were poor away from home. Wrexham have now won. I think they've won 6 of the last 7. Of the 5 of the last 6 on the road. They're a different beast now, and at this end of the season, it's not about performances; it's about results. And earlier in the season, Wrexham were getting results and not performances, so they've already shown in this season that they can do that. Whereas Wickham, for me, whilst they might have been one of the best teams that I've seen this season, they were all about the performance. And while they were getting results, sometimes the confidence can dip. But yeah, for me, Wrexham, and it pains me to see a club just fly past you and go through, but sometimes you've got to hold your hands up and say fair play that they've had an outstanding year. And yeah, they look like they're going to go back to back, which will obviously be history, I think, in the EFL. I don't think any club's done 3 promotions in a row.
They've obviously been well backed, but I think they've recruited smartly. And with that, everybody wants to beat Wrexham for the owners, for the manager, for what they've done, for the arrogance of the football club. And that arrogance, I love. I love that they've got this arrogance of the way they go and go at teams. Everybody says, oh, they'll get beat, they'll get battered in the Championship. Everybody says, oh, when they're up to the Football League, it'll be a totally different ball game to be playing non-league football. And then when he said to get up to League One, oh, you're playing Bolton, you're playing Birmingham now. When up to the Championship, it'll be the same, slightly harder, but Wrexham will find a way to adapt. Do I think the progress will halt? Yeah, I don't think they're going to go straight up, but they might do. But I think that a couple of years in the Championship, I think that then a 3-year plan starts then. Stay up, compete year 2, year 3, go for it. A little bit like Milton Keynes tried to in League One, didn't work. Bolton Wanderers tried to, hasn't worked. But these 3-year plans, they are crucial. Lincoln City, I've had a 3 or 4 year plan in recent years as well to try and get out the division. And year on year, let's be honest about it, they've got better, really, and the expectation has got better. Mm. So, yeah, exactly. You thought I was going to have a dig at you then, didn't you?
I did.
No, I like Lincoln City. You know that.
I know you do. You TikTok.
I'm a bit worried about Birmingham City because when they play on the 29th of March, that could be 18 days without a victory. Now, for me, they're only 9 points now, clear of Wrexham. They haven't won a game since the 11th of March. Look, they played 1 game. They didn't play yesterday, as of recording this. We know Birmingham City are going to win the league. They've been absolutely phenomenal. They've won 25 of their 36 matches, totaling 83 points, 20 points off levelling the League One record, or 23 from levelling Reading's 106 with 30 to play for a cup final in weeks to come. Jake, for me, my top 6 looks like this. I'm going to go for Bolton in 6th, Stockport in 5th, Charlton in 4th, Wickham in 3rd, and Wrexham in 2nd. And Birmingham will win the league just about. I think that, again, good seasons for Reading, Leyton Orient, Blackpool, Barnsley, Lincoln hit and miss, way out of it. Let's be honest about it for most of the season. Huddersfield will feel disappointed, and I just don't even if they've got into the playoffs. I don't think they are good enough. If I'm honest with you, in key areas, they didn't replace key players. In January, that they let go, didn't they? Let's be honest about it. They let go of Heelick, which was a massive loss. I think that's where I started to write them off. But a lot of those teams that finish outside, you feel like can go and do the hard yards next year. What about yourself?
Yeah, my top 6 is very similar. I just have Stockport and Charlton switched around. So I have Bolton in 6th, Charlton in 5th, Stockport in 4th, Wickham in 3rd, and then I have Wrexham and Birmingham getting promoted. And good riddance as well. Get them money spenders out of the league so that it can be a bit more competitive next year.
Who's going to Wembley?
I think you'll see a Charlton. I think you'll see a Charlton Bolton final.
Iron Fan Zone podcast. How are we?
Yeah, don't worry, Ben. I've got inside tickets. We're sorted if Bolton get there. Hopefully. But yeah, no, I anticipate a Charlton Bolton. To be honest, but I can't. I think if you're asking me based off this season, I think you probably edge it for Charlton. Whereas I think, if depending on how Bolton finish the season, they have every chance. So it's going to be a really interesting playoff campaign. I think all teams who get in there have been very good this season. I think they'll make for how many games have we got? 5 entertaining games to have at the end of the year.
All the season now is you've done work for 37 or 38 games. It is now an 8-game season or a 9-game season in Bolton's case. If Bolton Wanderers going are phenomenal for the next 9 plus 3, 12 games of the season, if they get that many games, and they are better than Charlton in those 12 games, well, in the next 9, that's all that matters, and they're enough to get into the playoffs, and then they are better over 3 games than Charlton, or even scrap through for 2 games and are better on the day than Charlton and win that game of football, you're not going to remember this season. And Bolton have had a really up and down season. So's Charlton. Let's be honest, Nathan Jones could have been sacked after that defeat to Crawley. They stuck loyal. Wickham have had their ups and downs. Stockport lost Louis Barry. Everybody thought they were going to derail. Birmingham had their down when they drew 1-1 on the start of the season to Reading at home. And other than that, the Shrewsbury away, Charlton, Bolton away. Realistically, they've never had a down. That has been today's League One podcast. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please give us a like. Please subscribe. Go and follow Jake's Twitter handle on Jake_Tong98 and here for the Lincoln podcast as well, which is brilliant. Never listened to a word of it, but brilliant. Hope you all enjoy this podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe if you like. See you later.